Okay, you're still watching The Family Show. Today with John and Helen live on Plus TV Africa. Now, how much information do we have on autism, especially the signs, the symptoms, and the treatment options that are available? How do we care for and support sufferers who, so that they can live normal and meaningful lives? Answers to these questions and a lot more to be provided by our next guest.
Yes, and she comes highly recommended, an NYC area-based physician, a health expert, media contributor, and health writer. Our next guest is not only a practicing internist and civil surgeon designated by the United States Department of Homeland Security and the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, she's also a medical advisor. The CEO of Internal Medicine Private Practice, Dr. Nesochi, LLC, and Health Media Consulting Company is what she runs, as well as a trusted resource and respected international health expert who often corrects misinformation, latest health trends, and encourages a measured and thoughtful approach to personal health. Hello, Dr. Nesochi. Can you hear us?
Hello.
You can hear us. Hello. And thank you for making time to join us on the program today. Yes? All right, so let's get straight to the questions, and we hope that the internet will allow, go smoothly through this conversation because it's so important. For those who may not fully understand, what exactly is autism and how does it typically present in children and adults?
So autism is a neurodevelopmental condition, and it's really characterized by a few things. Some of the characteristics include challenges with social interaction, challenges with communication skills, and challenges and issues with repetitive behavior. So a child with autism may present with issues with social interaction, whereby they may not want to interact with other children. They avoid groups. They may like to stay by themselves. They avoid eye contact. And more importantly, with those characteristics that are noted with the social interaction piece, there's a lack of understanding of certain social cues. So they may not understand facial expression. So if a parent were to smile at the child may not smile back. They don't understand body language or the tone of voice of an individual. And when it comes to the communication skills, there's an issue with sometimes delayed language, or the child may be nonverbal. They may not respond to their name when their name is called. They may use repetitive actions, repetitive behaviors. They may repeat the same word over and over again, something called echolalia. In regards to repetitive behavior, they may also engage in repetitive motions. So they may rock all the time, or flap their hands, or spin. When they use objects, like the toys that they would play with. If they were to play with a toy car, they may not play with the car in totality. They may fixate on just playing with the wheels and just spinning the wheels over and over again. And then they have these specific rituals and routines that they may adhere to, and any divergence from those routines can cause them to become upset. So if they're playing, for instance, they may line up trucks the same way each time. If that were to change, they may get upset. If, for instance, a parent were to give the child every day a red cup to use to drink a beverage, and it was changed one day to a blue cup, they may get upset because they've been accustomed to that certain ritual. And then they can have issues with sensitivity to sensory stimuli, like certain sounds and light, and just difficulty regulating their emotions. So that's what you can see really in children that have some of the signs and symptoms of autism. When it comes to adults with autism, there's still going to be those same concerns and issues with social interaction. However, in adults, some of the concerns with the social interactions, they're not able to really maintain discussion. They have very literal form of understanding things, so they don't really understand or get figurative language. They'll take everything literally. There's a lack of understanding, recognition of sarcasm or jokes, and again, they may also prefer to stay on their own and be alone. When it comes to the repetitive behavior, they can also exhibit repetitive speech, and they may fixate on certain topics. They may hyperfixate on one topic in particular. And they may just have issues with planning, organization, and time management. So in a broad sense, when we talk about these symptoms for autism, whether it's in a child or in an adult, the challenges mainly lie in the social interaction piece, the communication skills piece, and repetitive behavior, ongoing issues with repetitive behavior.
Okay.
So quite frankly, I think what I get from this is that autism itself is such a broad spectrum, operates within such a broad spectrum that and there are sometimes when we even come across people with autism and we're like not too sure what this is because it presents itself in so many ways. What are the implications of this kind of spectrum that autism presents itself with, and how important is it in its diagnosis and treatment?
Yeah, so in regards to when we say that there is a spectrum, essentially there's a broad range of presentation of some of these signs and symptoms. There can be a very high level of severity of symptoms, and another individual with autism may exhibit very minimal symptoms.
Yeah.
So that's why indeed there's a spectrum, just the range of the symptoms from scale of severity, mild, moderate, severe. It just essentially ranges, and why that's important to know that no two individuals with autism will present exactly the same way. So there needs to be an approach in regards to treatment options to actually determine what the best treatment would be to suit that individual based upon their presentation.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are some of the most common misconceptions that people still have about autism? We have a lot of people, facing this in our environment, and there's so many different ways that people. So I said, what are some of the most common misconceptions that people still have about autism? A very quick break. Maybe while we're on break, we'll be able to reconnect with our guest. Okay, so thank you so much for still being there with us. It's still Today with John and Helen live, and we are talking autism. Before we went on the break, we were asking the guests what some of the most common misconceptions that people still have about autism are, and especially in an environment such as this. So please pick up from there. Common misconceptions that people still have.
So common misconceptions and myths. People still think that autism is somehow a contagious disease. If you're around somebody else with autism, maybe you can get autism as well. That is false, and that is something that needs to be debunked. A common one that I hear, another common myth that I hear, especially in Nigeria, is that this occurs because it's a spiritual attack of some sort, and that's the reason why a child or any individual may have autism. That's a myth. That's false. I've also heard people say, oh, this is a reflection of bad parenting. That is also a myth in regards to autism. We have to realize that this is a neurodevelopmental condition. It's not anything having to do with spiritual attacks, bad parenting. It's not a contagious illness or disease. And another major myth and misconception is that there is a link between autism and vaccinations. That has been debunked as well. There is no link between the development of autism and vaccines. So those are the major ones that I tend to hear when it comes to these misconceptions and these myths about the condition.
Yes. So now you also explained to us earlier that, I mean, there's such a broad spectrum, and it presents its way in different. It presents itself in different ways to different people. So at what age is autism usually diagnosed, and how accurate are early assessments?
Yeah, per the CDC, one can be diagnosed as early as 18 months, but on average, we typically see the diagnosis occur at the age of between 2 and 3 years of age. That's typically the age that they can have that early diagnosis for intervention. In regards to the actual assessments, to determine if one does have autism. There are various screening modalities available. One would essentially start off with a screening questionnaire of sorts, and then they have all the other diagnostic modules. Diagnostic tools called the ADOS, the Autism Diagnostic Observation Schedule, and the ADIR. These are very specific gold standard tests that can be used to help in that diagnosis by a specialist who really takes care of individuals with autism in regards to diagnosis and treatment.
Okay, so part of what we actually wanted to learn through this conversation, I mean, is the aspect of treatment options. So let's go to that direction right now. Now, when you have a child who has autism, how do we deal? How do families, how do parents, and the society, how should we deal with them? And is it a permanent condition? Is it treatable, and what are the options medically to treat?
Yeah, so it definitely is treatable depending on what the symptoms are, because there is just a vast array of symptoms for autism. It depends on how an individual presents. So for instance, if the individual really has an issue with the speech and language acquisition or the speech delay, then they would engage in speech therapy. If the issue is primarily an issue with the repetitive behavior or behavioral issues, there's something called ABA, what we describe as applied behavioral analysis. This is just a form of therapy to improve upon positive behavior and decrease any negative behaviors that could be found. In regards to someone who has more needs, they're not able to care for themselves. They may engage in occupational therapy so that they can learn more about how to engage in self-care, essentially. If there were any other issues with potentially anxiety that is going along with the autism diagnosis, some of those symptoms can lead to a need for what we call cognitive behavioral therapy. So essentially, the treatment are these therapy modalities, depending on how one is really presenting with the condition. And of course, the earlier the diagnosis, the more the better, I should say, the prognosis in regards to improved outcomes so that they can have a better quality of life as the individual grows older.
Okay.
That's quite enlightening, and thank you so much. Now I'm a little confused. I'm really confused about some of the other conditions that may be or look similar to autism. For instance, readily what comes to mind is maybe cerebral palsy. You know, can autism, for instance, be mistaken for other developmental or behavioral conditions, and how do doctors differentiate them?
Yeah, so in regards to other conditions that can be mistaken for autism, that does happen. There is quite a bit of concern with certain misdiagnoses if you don't have someone experienced in the diagnosis of the condition, but other conditions that one may confuse with autism, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, is a condition that sometimes is confused. An individual that may have autism may be deemed as somebody who could be hard of hearing, so they might confuse the autism with somebody that is hard of hearing just because they're not responding or verbal. They think, okay, this is most certainly a hearing condition. So there is a bit of overlap in certain symptoms that can make one believe that something else is occurring and something else is happening. And then some may believe there's an element of maybe anxiety or depressive disorder, but essentially there are diagnostic criteria when it comes to determining if an individual has autism. And it's really focused on determining if they meet the criteria in regards to the challenges with the social interaction, the communication skills issue, and the repetitive behavior. There are a certain amount of symptoms in each category that they fulfill that criteria before we can give that clinical diagnosis. To put it in perspective, autism is not a condition whereby the diagnosis can be obtained by a blood test or a brain scan. It's really a clinical diagnosis based on some of these gold standard tests that are done.
Okay, so let's zero into the family and the community. What role does family support and education particularly play in the management of autism, and how effective, can the role of the family be?
So family support is crucial. It's actually essential when we talk about a child, especially in their formative years, that is dealing with autism. Families need to first keep abreast on what exactly autism is, know about the symptoms, know about what the treatment entails, and really provide that loving environment for the child. Oftentimes when there's that lack of understanding of the condition, it can translate into issues with the family dynamic. I think especially in Nigeria, where autism is not very well understood and oftentimes misdiagnosed, there could be an individual or a child dealing with autism, and sometimes parents, without understanding that there is that potential clinical diagnosis of autism, think that it is something else. Like potentially, is this an issue with a psychosis? Is this an issue with just very with a child that is not very well behaved? They might not want to bring their child out in public because they think that there's something wrong, and not understanding that there's actually a developmental condition at play. So really just having that fundamental understanding of what exactly it is, so that one can move forward to really have a life in which the child can thrive as they get older.
Okay.
Great. So now, of course, we always rely on the family for support, but you will find that children with autism, some of them would still go to school and spend normal hours, normal hours with other children. How can schools and communities, for instance, be more inclusive and supportive of children on the autism spectrum?
I think it's key to continue for schools and communities to raise awareness, have that level of awareness and education in the community to understand what the condition is, so that when you do have that child in the classroom that may have an issue with dealing with autism, you have a sense of understanding of what they are going through, so that you can provide that kind of support for them in that classroom. So I think that is the key, maintaining that level of education and awareness about what exactly the condition is. It actually is Autism Acceptance Month, so it's a great time to really ensure that communities, schools, leaders understand what this condition is, so that we can ensure that individuals with autism have that kind of environment where it's supportive and they can do well in society.
Okay, so let's draw from your experience as a physician and a thought healer. What message would you give to parents who have just received an autism diagnosis for their child?
I would say, first, do not despair. If you have received that diagnosis, it's good that you understand what's going on with your child so that you have answers to why there are certain symptoms or challenges that your child may be facing. Because with that diagnosis, you are now empowered to have that early intervention to help your child to pretty much thrive and flourish in society. I think the issue arises when you don't have the diagnosis, and essentially an individual with autism may potentially be suffering in silence because they're not getting that kind of support system, the support that they need. And I would say to parents, you must continue to love your child the way you would love any other child. This is not a reason to despair or think, okay, why me? Why did this happen to my child? But to continue to provide that kind of loving, supporting, nurturing environment so that your child can do well over the course of time.
Great.
Yes, Dr. Nnasochi, thank you so much. And quite frankly, we really must appreciate all that you have been doing in this area of autism. Now, could you tell us finally, what other initiatives, or do you have any collaboration with maybe government or other agencies in our environment here to help us understand how to manage autism better in this environment? Could you tell us a bit about what you're doing?
Yeah, so in regards to what I'm doing is really the education piece, trying to raise that awareness and seeing what can be done to bring together potential NGOs to the forefront of the government. I think we are still limited in those kinds of collaborations in Nigeria, and there are limitations in regards to actually specialists that are available to provide that diagnosis and provide the treatment modalities for individuals with autism. So the role that I play at this point really is in the awareness piece, awareness campaigns, raising awareness, and really the education piece to empower individuals with the knowledge about what the condition is. Hopefully in the future, we will have come to a point where we do have better initiatives on the ground in Nigeria to get more specialists there, to get more treatment available and more options for parents to help their children who are dealing with this. I don't think we're there yet, but I'm optimistic that one day we will be.
Yes, we'll keep our fingers crossed there.
Thank you so much. We look to the future and better understanding and treatment options, you know, for the children and adults who are particularly suffering from this health challenge. Thank you so much. Especially in the social media tech age, we need intentional information and information from professionals like you, you know, so that we can debunk some of the myths and misunderstanding that a lot of people carry, especially when it comes to issues like this. Thank you so much for filling the gap.
And that was so heartwarming and helpful, Dr. Nnasochi. We appreciate your efforts and dedication to providing life-saving insights on health challenges. Thanks for your time, and we hope to have you again on our show.
Maybe when you're in Nigeria, so we could just bypass the technical hitches. But it was really, really nice having you on the show today. Thank you. And I believe, yeah, I do believe you now have better understanding, talking to you out there, of autism, the signs, the symptoms, and treatment options that are available. And let's make way at this point in time for the one and only John Senaya, who happens to be bitten by the bug to, you know, give us more information on leadership and public speaking.
Yeah, what I call executive speech skills.
Okay.
So that will be by way of giving you my nugget for today. And the nugget is short and direct. The essence of humor is the surprise. And that's the beauty of laughter. It sneaks up on us. Just when we think we've got life all figured out, humor steps in and reminds us not to take it too seriously. A twist in a story, an unexpected punchline, or playful perspective on a tough moment all catch us off guard and makes us smile, if you've noticed. So in a world full of routines and predictability, humor injects light. It sparks joy, and it reconnects us with our humanity. It's in those surprises that we find relief, perspective, and even healing. So welcome the unexpected. Laugh when life flips the script, because sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come wrapped in a chuckle.
What is a chuckle?
Just
John?
a little chuckle. If someone can make you chuckle,
Just chuckle.
right, you'll find some light at the end of that tunnel. Yes.
You know, you see, we need a lot of humor at this point in time. You know, personal. Just be intentional.
Everyday humor.
Yeah, just look for things around that
And
will make you
make light
yes,
of difficult
the difficult
situations.
situations. Thank you, John.
That's the purpose of humor.
Thank you. Thank you. That's quite needed at this point,
At this
especially
point,
for
yes.
me. All right. So what would you say? Have we been able to make your day? Have we given you one or two tidbits, you know, to keep you running through the next 7 days before we come back here to refill? It's been a pleasure. I'm HELEN Odeleye, and the show has been Today with John and Helen. We have had a lovely time with you. We'll see you again same time next week. Bye now.
John Sanaya, and I'm out.